The 2024 Bracket Challenge is live. Didn't make your picks yet? Don't worry, we're here to help. We have 4 articles on our website to walk you through all the matchups. And I highly recommend you do so because I think this year might be one of the toughest ever for insurance professionals to make their picks. How tough? Well, listen to our analysts discuss just 4 of them today. Welcome to Emerging Issues. Verisk Emerging Issues, your source for vital market intelligence on the evolving risks and opportunities facing insurers and risk managers that can help inform product development and strategic planning. Verisk's Emerging Issues. Hi, I'm Chris Sirota, Product Manager at Verisk's Emerging Issues. What a bracket we have put together this year. Today, our analysts Kevin Sullivan and Greg Scobletti discuss PFAS, microplastics, space weather, megadroughts, infrastructure, autonomous vehicles, robotics, and the metaverse. Just a few of our matchups this year. Here's our talk. For our health quadrant, I asked Greg to discuss the PFAS and microplastics matchup.
Yes, so PFAS was the top issue in the 2023 bracket challenge, and it really shows no sign of slowing down this year. So there have been a reported $12 billion in PFAS settlements, settlements stemming from PFAS litigation, but modeling from Verisk's Arium liability analytics platform suggests that really might just be the tip of a much larger iceberg. Arium modeling suggests that PFAS litigation could reach ground-up losses of over $100 billion, and that is just for claims surrounding environmental contamination.
Wow.
Meanwhile, we're also watching how efforts to pull PFAS out of the environment and out of products are gaining steam, and how that effort may influence things like substitution risks. And microplastics, they are a new category for the bracket challenge. So EI readers, emerging issues readers may know in April of last year, we highlighted some research suggesting that microplastics could be doing, quote, irreversible damage to the environment. Microplastics are basically tiny, nano-sized particles of plastics. They're formed when larger pieces of plastic degrade. And in that degradation process, plastics can release all kinds of nasty chemicals, such as PFAS. And now we know we have a good handle on the scope of microplastic contamination in our environment. What's somewhat less clear is the connection between, or at least the potential connection, between that contamination and any human illnesses that may be a result of that.
Oh, wow. So there's still more research kind of needed to give us insight into
drawing
that.
a linkage, if any, yes.
Wow. And microplastics can also, if I remember correctly in the research, support the bacteria or viruses and spread throughout the environment.
Yeah, they can be vectors for viruses. They wash up. They can be ingested by animals, so they can they have a multifaceted threat.
Wow. Okay, well, good matchup. Looking at our environmental/societal quadrant, Kevin helps us out with the space weather and mega drought matchup.
In the case of space weather, this is the first time in 3 years that the topic is appearing in the challenge. And I think with good reason. We have seen more research that looking into what could be the possible consequences or damage incurred by powerful solar activity. So, for instance, a powerful solar event like a geomagnetic storm, we know that in the past, these have been really debilitating and costly. And what experts project is that if we were to have a storm, a space storm of that variety, now it could trigger hundreds of billions in insurer losses. Now, in the case of mega droughts, we saw all across 2023 that while these droughts, of course, have a direct impact on human life, they can have an impact on supply chains as well. One of the strongest indicators from 2023 would be the supply chain holdups at the Panama Canal, where really historic drought and dry season has made it more difficult for massive carriers to get their container ships through the canal, forcing them in some instances to use alternative routes, which of course delays products, delays materials getting to businesses, and makes everything costlier.
My goodness. Yeah. So those are interesting risks that are pitted against each other in our challenge. And I think it's for the Panama Canal. Is it? I believe that they have to use fresh water in the canal. Is that the big problem here?
Yes, the Panama
Despite
Canal.
it's the canals. Sorry, but the canals in between two major bodies of water, the ocean, but they're using fresh water.
This is true. They source the water from a giant man-made lake in order to essentially to facilitate the ships getting through the canal. Now there are alternatives for shippers. There's in the case of Panama, it's a multimodal system. So there's uh, trains, and you can put your cargo on trucks. Some companies are literally doing that to get them across the canal.
Oh wow! All right, so there are some alternatives, but they may take more time and may cost more money, right?
Exactly.
Very interesting. And with space weather, just to be clear, that may interfere with various things, including electrical grids, right? And
Exactly.
take grids down, or perhaps cause fires and things of that nature.
All of the above.
Oh my gosh! All right, interesting matchup. In the mobility quadrant, Kevin helps us out again by discussing the infrastructure and autonomous vehicle matchup. Note he uses the acronym RAAC, referring to reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete.
Yeah, these are definitely interesting topics, and topics that we took a close look at, especially in the latter half of 2023. Infrastructure, in particular, with so much federal funding flowing into different communities and municipalities, lots of different interesting angles to explore. More than $300 billion have been doled out over the past 2 years to state governments. This is bridges, roads, highways, ports of entry, airports, seaports, you name it. So this is obviously one that's been on the radar for folks in the industry for quite some time now, and it'll, I think, undoubtedly continue to be so in the year ahead. Um, that being said, there's also a question of, while we are in a period of time where infrastructure development seems to be booming, there are questions about existing infrastructure that we want to keep an eye on as well. One of the analyses that we did last year, of course, we took a deeper look at the problem of rack concrete and how this could pose a dilemma for existing infrastructure down the road. This being a so-called concrete cancer that could lead to deterioration in spaces such as parking lots and
Wow.
and large concrete structures. So I think just the trade-off being there that the money is coming in, but there's an existing infrastructure that needs a great deal of improvement and bolstering that we'll have to be monitoring in the year ahead as well.
So maintenance and new infrastructure, both.
The new and the old.
Right, the new
Yeah.
and the well put, well put.
And speaking of the new, with autonomous vehicles, 2023 was sort of a tricky year for the technology. We did see a handful of companies really opening up, really growing, and launching their fleets of autonomous rideshare vehicles. I think more colloquially, we're calling them robo-taxis now.
Mm-hmm.
So we saw robo-taxi fleets expand in cities such as San Francisco, Austin, for
Right,
instance.
right.
These there were setbacks, as there were also moments of success for these companies. Early on, there didn't seem to be really strong communication and planning, for instance, with first responders. We've had instances in these cities of, one, them causing traffic, which, they're now joining the club of regular automobiles, but also more serious and concerning incidents of bikers being hit, pedestrians being hit,
Oh my gosh.
the software in these vehicles being confused by various forms of interference, like putting cones on top of them.
Right.
We did see in California that one of the big robotaxi providers had their fleets suspended, and their application to even expand their operations is being deferred until later in the year. So it's a technology that's growing, and it's interesting, and people seem interested in it, but definitely it leaves some room for concern.
Lastly, Greg focuses on the matchup of robotics and the metaverse in the technology quadrant.
Yeah, so this matchup is really like a tale of two different technologies and sort of trajectories, at least in the public consciousness. So, robots obviously been around for years in both commercial settings, and increasingly now personal settings, and we're seeing a real surge in robotic use in commercial settings. But this sort of new generation of robot in the workforce may be fairly new. In fact, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health had warned that information around the number and specific details of robot injuries involving some of this new technology is not very well documented. And injury really isn't the only thing you have to worry about when it comes to robots in commercial settings. They may distract human workers. When they're used in a surgical context, any errors could obviously have significant human consequences. There are cyber risk exposures associated with robots. They could potentially be hacked. And there's also the risk of property damage from robots in motion. And I mentioned that robotic concerns may also extend increasingly to homeowners, to personal property. So you have robotic lawnmowers, and those may pose a danger to people or pets on a homeowner's property, or even off of a homeowner's property, if you can envision a robot lawnmower going amok. These devices are also increasingly connected to the internet, so they may at least potentially pose a cyber risk. And if a home robot, is powered by a lithium ion battery, you do run the risk of a potential lithium ion battery fire from these devices. So, switching gears, metaverse, much newer than robotics, but the enthusiasm around that technology, at least from some media reports, appears to have dissipated a bit, at least from those very early days of the metaverse fanfare. However, we still see new consumer devices that can extend the application of the metaverse, as well as new software applications for the technology. And like we're looking at, sort of similar to robotics, metaverse have cyber security concerns. These may be a breeding ground for fraud. Scammers could try to defraud people of their virtual identities in a metaverse. And cybercrime appears to follow organizations into the metaverse. So any organization or brand that has a metaverse presence may have assets, virtual assets, exposed to criminal activity.
Thanks for listening. Again, you can read the articles about all the matchups on our website and make your bracket challenge picks at core.verisk.com/EI. That's E like emerging, I like issues. And don't forget to sign up for our newsletter so you'll know when we release the final results of the challenge. Again, that's core.verisk.com/EI. Stay well, everyone. Thanks again. Verisk's Emerging Issues, your source for vital market intelligence on the evolving risks and opportunities facing insurers and risk managers that can help inform product development and strategic planning. Verisk's Emerging Issues.